Hey guys, so a few days ago I made a video about PlayStation 5 Pro's potential specs based on a big leak available back then. I mean, all that information is still out there, you can check it out, but we've got a bit of an update on it now, and there's more information from some other reliable sources. Talking about like potential price of the new console, release date, and that kind of stuff. So the original leak mentioned 60 compute units, 2 gigahertz GPU clock speeds, some other information on the memory, but memory actually was leaked by Tom Henderson a few weeks ago, so we knew that information already. I mean, you can go back to that original article on WCCF Tech and read that again. I won't go through that again, but what I really want to focus is on that new information. So first off, Paul of Red Gaming Tech mentioned that he believes that the clock speeds are going to be much higher because, like I said, not really the original leaker, because the original leaker of that information was Kepler L2, and he's a well-known insider on Twitter. He's actually pretty right, spot on when it comes to AMD chips. I don't know where he's getting that information from. He must have some sort of access to, like, I guess, AMD database or something like that. Anyway, he's a good source of information, and he did say that the chip, I think it's called Viola or something like that, or PlayStation 5 Pro's chip is going to be based on Viola, I don't know. Either way, that chip is going to have 60 compute units active. That's a lot. And he also, I think, spoke about the memory, which is still 16 gigabytes but faster, should offer 580 gigabytes per second, something like that, or something close. I mean, I guess at this point it's not really that important, really. So, I mean, generally speaking, looks like PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be quite powerful. Paul of Red Gaming Tech did say that he believes that the clock speeds are going to be higher than some other people speculated, because there was some rumors talking about like 2 gigahertz clock speeds, which sounds pretty low. For Paul, he believes it's going to be closer to 2.3, maybe 2.5 gigahertz, even though the chip is going to be bigger than the PlayStation 5's. But I guess it makes sense because apparently that chip, that PlayStation 5 Pro's chip, is going to be made on 4 nanometers, so there's going to be power efficiency better and that kind of stuff, right? So, you know, generally speaking, I would imagine that console is going to offer at least double the compute power of PlayStation 5, right? I'm talking about like the raw compute power, not necessarily saying that all games will run, at double the speed or like twice as good, right? Because clearly the performance in games is not only dependent on the GPU performance, but also other parts of the console, like memory size, memory bandwidth. CPU is actually plays crucial role in terms of frames and that kind of stuff. And obviously there was some discussion that maybe PlayStation would go with our Zen 3 based CPU, but I don't think that's really going to happen. I would say that they will stick to pretty much the same CPU, same technology, just faster, meaning that clock speeds are probably going to be higher, 4.4, as some suggested, could be possible. So like I said in my original video, we are looking at like 20%, close to 20% increase in performance in the CPU side of things. GPU wise, probably close to double the performance or compute power, right? And better GPU, ray tracing and that kind of stuff. And also there was some comments on potential cost of that console, because people started saying that, oh, such a console would cost like $800-900, and I don't think that's going to be the case, because really not the only, but the biggest change would be the GPU portion of it. And like Levatian Gamer, he's actually quite knowledgeable on that kind of stuff. He claims that the actual extra cost of the GPU would be around $60 to $80, right? So the production cost, so if anything, PlayStation 5 Pro could potentially be $100 more expensive than PlayStation 5. By the time PlayStation 5 Pro launches, I would imagine PlayStation 5 to drop at least a little bit in price. So, what they could do? They could launch PlayStation 5 Pro for $550, so the current PlayStation 5 price, and lower the PlayStation 5 price to $450, right? I mean, by the time PlayStation 5 Pro drops, which is being, the release date for that console is to be believed next year, I believe, late next year. So who knows? Maybe PlayStation 5 price will drop to like $450 next year, right? So I would imagine that they would introduce the new console and the price drop for the current one, right? So that's the news, really, guys. When it comes to performance and games and stuff, like, don't expect 30 frames per second games to become 60 frames per second games all of a sudden. I mean, games like Final Fantasy 16, for example, which offer performance modes but don't stick to 60 frames per second in performance mode. That game offers anything between 45 to 60 frames per second in performance mode. So such game could potentially be, maybe even locked 60 frames per second. Who knows, right? But like I said, like a typical 30 frames per second game will still be a 30 frames per second game. I guess 20% better performance, CPU performance, will offer just that, 20% better frames in games when it comes to, CPU bottlenecked games, because there's, I'm sure that there's some titles that are GPU bottlenecked. Then in such cases, a game that is either running at lower resolution or lower frame rate, that could potentially get more benefit of that, extra power. But still, remember, guys, we're still talking about a console that offers 16 gigabytes of RAM. The memory bandwidth is not going to be that much higher. I mean, we're talking about like 20% increase in memory bandwidth too. But remember, they will offer better ray tracing too. So that memory bandwidth will be used for that. Also, more work on the ray tracing side of things means more work for CPU. So some of that stuff will have to be handled. So some of the extra ray tracing stuff will have to be handled by CPU too. So don't expect a revolution in terms of frames, but expect much better graphics, image quality, ray tracing. That's for sure. So yeah, just a little bit of an update on PlayStation 5 Pro, really. I actually can't wait for the official specs to release, and let's hope the actual specs are going to be somewhere close to what we heard recently, because if all these rumors are true, that console is going to be quite a beast, I must say. So anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.